How's it going, guys? My name is Stone, and welcome to these reviews. My reviews, to be specific, if it isn't obvious. Today, a Genesis fan is going to review yet another Genesis album, an album that's considered to be one of the band's worst efforts. From Genesis to Revelation, released in 1969. This came out while the band either was still in high school or were just coming out of high school, and sees the group trying to write straightforward pop songs under the supervision of Jonathan King, who was practically managing the band at this time and took control of their musical direction during these sessions. This album would notably fail to chart and flop in sales due to record stores placing it in the religious section, all because the only text that was provided on the album was its album title, and which I find to be quite funny, and I guess it would make sense seeing how things were organized back in the day, but it would sell merely 649 copies according to Wikipedia. And so if any of you guys are lucky to have an original pressing, let me know, because that's pretty cool. Especially if it's a mono, because I think the stereo on this is pretty bad, but bearable knowing it came from the 60s. But based on reviews by both fans and critics over the decades, it seems like this album gets a bad rep merely because it sounds like a cheap imitation of the Moody Blues and the Bee Gees at this time, which I do think is a fair argument to point out, but for it coming out of the late 60s, I think it captures a fine balance of Genesis trying to discover their sound while keeping a sense of accessibility that would not be as evident in their later works. Now, I'm not going to say that this is like a top 5 album by them by any means, but me being a fan of psych rock from the 60s, I think there's a lot of enjoyable tracks to be found on this record that remind me a lot of the sunshine pop scene of like Sagittarius and Mamas and Papas and whatnot. And I do think that this is a great vinyl album to have. Well, a great album to have on vinyl, merely because since the tracks blend so well together, since they all sound so similar, it really makes for a great atmosphere to just kind of go through in one sitting and just let it play. I will say some of these tracks blend together in a good way and in a bad way sometimes. Like, it kind of makes it hard to know what's playing. But regardless, I think it's a very enjoyable experience. It opens with the most melodic track, or one of the most melodic on the album, where the sour turns to sweet, which, in my opinion, is, definitely one of my favorites and one of the catchiest off this album. Its use of strings, horns, and even snaps creates such a dancing rhythm that also carries a strong pastoral atmosphere throughout the verses into the chorus. I also admire Gabriel's vocals on this song, and that'll be a compliment I'll be repeating quite a bit because I absolutely love Gabriel on this album. He really kills it as a singer, always, but this song really starts this album out on a high note, but I don't think the tracks that follow it really reach that same standard. Nevertheless, they're still enjoyable though. It's followed by the track In the Beginning, which has a nice drive to it thanks to the fuzzy guitars and energetic vocals by Gabriel. This is probably the heaviest song on the album, not to say that anything on here is heavy, but I find that the production really adds to the grittiness that the music already has, since it already sounds so rough. And I do like the simplicity of it. It's definitely not as complex as their later works, especially when you compare this album as a whole to their later stuff, but I like how it's able to maintain such a catchy yet gloomy atmosphere. One thing that kind of bothers me though is how when we get to Fireside Song, we get to this kind of like piano interlude that really shouldn't. It starts off Fireside Song, but I think it should have closed in the beginning instead, because it just feels a bit jarring, and I don't like how they did that. But to move on past, I just had to get that critique. The actual Fireside Song is actually really lovely, and this is where we get the real meat of the album, in my opinion, where We really get to hear the band show off their sense of sophisticated psychedelic pop. And the blend of strings and acoustic guitar in the verses are just sublime, and are only enhanced by Gabriel's lovely lyrics and vocal performance. Its moodiness really sets, or not sets, it really just feels like a breath of fresh air at this point when we first get to it. And it's definitely a song that continues to get better and better the more I've listened to it, because I've never been a big fan until, or even like really appreciated it until doing this review. So yeah, how about that? The next track, being The Serpent, also begins with a gloomy intro that sounds pretty alluring, but it quickly disappears and just suddenly transitions into the actual song, which I feel like is kind of bothersome for me. It doesn't really, the pieces don't feel like they were connected well at all, and it really just kind of throws me out of the mood. But regardless of that, I do think the song is pretty good. It has a nice build up to the chorus. It does keep a similar tone to In the Beginning, which I find to be both songs leaning more towards the eerie side of psych rock. So it's nice to have that variety there. I just kind of wish they had gone about blending those two pieces together, or just, I don't know, doing a little more with the track. We then get to one of my favorite songs off side A, Am I Very Wrong, which has a very lovely piano intro that actually does a good job setting the mood for the rest of the song. Though I do find the lyrics to be pretty weak, talking about the happiness machine and, oh, it's your birthday, everything alright? I think that's how it goes. Today's your birthday, friend, like what's going on? A little cheesy. I don't know what they're talking about in the song, but I find the melodies throughout it to be so enticing, and especially with how gentle Gabriel's voice is in the verses. Does a great job invoking this ponderous yet melodic feeling, and I find this to be perfectly paired with the closer of side one, In the Wilderness. This track really stands out from the rest, especially on side A in my opinion, with the chorus so strong that I think it would have been a great choice for a single. I find the liveliness of the drums and Peter's ecstatic vocals to be very fun, and again blended very well with the strings that really raises this track's sense of tranquility. Closes the album, or it closes side one on a great note and really teases the kind of mood that would be set in side two. So while I can see why people would have issues with this music so far based on what we've heard, I find sorry, I lost where I was going. I just find that side B does a better job at showing the band's more straightforward pop songs that definitely have that psychedelic, that moody blues kind of sound, which I guess some people will think they're imitating, but I think they go about it on their own way very well. Side B opens with another favorite of mine, The Conqueror, which apparently Noel Gallagher was a big fan of, which it's kind of interesting to know. I mean, he seems like a Genesis fan, but yeah. Now him and I are fans of it. It's crazy, we got something in common. I even find its intro to be quite appropriate and throwing the listener into the actual song, so I think they did a good job on that part. This is much more upbeat and whimsical than anything else probably on this whole record. And I find it to be a very strong opener and just getting the listener intrigued, or at least, yeah, getting myself intrigued. I love the combination of acoustic guitar and piano, as it really sets an uplifting tone to Gabriel's vocal melody. This ambitious sound remains constant throughout its runtime and fades into In Hiding fairly well. Now, while I do think this song, In Hiding, is strong and features a very nice chord progression, I've kind of played it a little too much for myself at this point, and I do find the chorus slightly annoying, but the verses are still spectacular, and like Fireside's song, the strings continue to elevate the song's atmosphere. Without it, I feel like much of the stuff on this album would kind of fall flat on its face without that use of strings, even if it is mixed badly. But yeah, this continues to be the case for the next track, One Day, which features some very relaxing verses, as well as another memorable chorus that blends themselves into a very strong psych pop track. This and the tracks that follow really show the band's ability to write these dreamy pop songs that maintain a very similar atmosphere that I think can be equally appreciated by stoners and sobers. So, yeah, how about that, you know? Kind of like, I mean, not to keep bringing the Moody Blues comparison, but I feel like this and some Moody Blues stuff would be the kind of music, the kind of psychedelic rock I'd play for my aunt who's like very not into rock music, but she would probably find it passable. So, how about that? We then get to one of my favorite songs from this album, playing right now, Window. This just, this is the part I really love. I was gonna mention how I love the bridge and just the chord progression overall with the song. It's just, I find it to be the most defining song on this album in terms of how it, the mood they were really trying to capture with this record. And I find the use of backing vocals by, again, Tony, my guy, coming in strong there. And again, just the combination, not only just the strings in Gabriel, but like the acoustic guitar in Gabriel, just working off each other so well and just making such a very easygoing, relaxing atmosphere in their music. So, I mean, I want to wrap the review up. Yeah, I feel like I'm basically talking about the album, but after that, we do get In Limbo, which is probably my least favorite song on this album. I personally just find it to sound a little too cheesy just because the horns don't really work in the song, and I feel like there's not really any hook to it that grabs my attention. I do like that it's a little more upbeat, but at the same time, it just kind of sticks out in a bad way on side two, especially in the middle of all these like really good, slow moving tracks. But it's definitely not unbearable. Like, it's definitely something I could put up with and listen to on the vinyl because, like I said, all these songs do have a similar flow. You don't want to stop the flow, bro. You know, don't stop the flow. We then get to the last two tracks on the album, which I think is a pretty decent way to close. Silent Way being an incredible highlight from this record. I think carries a very strong Beatles vibe to it, which I assume is what they were going for, and they did it very, very well. It's surprising to hear how this flopped as a single because I honestly think it was like this would have been the best single to put out from this record since it's so short, but in 2 minutes they really maintain that sense of melody and just proves that they're capable of writing great pop music even before the 80s. So, yeah. Would have been interesting to see if they continue this route a little more before going into, you know, progressive rock. But honestly, I don't know. I love the Lamb too much, so I think I would rather them just, you know, I'm glad they did what they had to do, you know. But we then come to the closer in this album, which for me is kind of an iffy track. Find to be a rather lackluster. Oh, yeah. Place to call my own if I didn't say it already. It's late over here, trust me. But I do enjoy the simplicity of the beginning with just the isolated vocals and piano. It does sound like a very sincere ballad kind of way to end the album. But then it kind of suddenly goes into this over-ambitious resolution to kind of like round the album off, and I don't really think it works that well, or as well as the producer probably thought what he was trying to make it. But it's just alright. Like it fails at what it was trying to do, but I guess it's still passable. So, because like I said, I do like the first half a lot. So, I don't know, it could have been better, but so it goes, you know. And so that goes with my review of this whole album. If I haven't made it obvious, definitely more of a fan of side B. I just think has its overall mood is much stronger on that side, but album as a whole is really good. I think it does not deserve the hate it gets. People were really saying it's as bad as Calling All Stations. No way. That album's bad. I mean, like, I don't like talking about stuff I don't like on this channel, because then I'm like, I don't know. I like talking about albums I like and get the word out there about them, but Calling All Stations, no. I mean, it's alright. I don't know. It's a different video for a different day. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I will show you. Don't really have much to show, but this is apparently based on the sleeve it came in, a US 74 repressing. And I'm glad I was I was fortunate to find this cover just because I've seen other covers that are like just completely different, and honestly I like the album artwork for this debut. I mean, I wish I didn't have this thing on it, but for a repressing I was lucky to find it for only like 20 bucks too. Not too shabby. But I know what happened was, it was actually the same day I bought the Weasels record. I saw this there, but I also bought like, I think I bought Live Dead too, so I was kind of like not wanting to spend any more money, but I was still in San Jose, and I was realizing, I'm like, you know, I don't think I could find this album anywhere else. I should buy it before, you know, before it's too late, and I was fortunate to do it, and I'm glad, because it's a great album experience, as I've said, or a great vinyl experience. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about this record. Let me know your favorite tracks, if you think it's that bad, or if you think it's that good. Just let me know, you know, it'd be awesome. Well, hope to see you guys in the next video, and keep on reviewing or whatever.